Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming. Is everybody all set to start? Okay, my name is Captain Chris Fay from B-Zone from the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. Today I am joined with the New York State Office of Cannabis Management, and on my right here, your left, would be Mark Lamont and Daniel Hackney. On my left here, from the Town of Henrietta, would be Supervisor Steve Schultz and the Assistant Supervisor Craig Eckert. And I appreciate all of you for joining us today. We're here to announce the end of an investigation that occurred regarding the business Mad Flavors Smoke Shop located at 2761 East Henrietta Road. On May 2nd, 2025, following an extensive investigation, Monroe County Sheriff's investigators assigned to B-Zone executed a search warrant at Mad Flavors Smoke Shop in Henrietta. Over the past few months, they worked diligently to develop the probable cause to obtain a search warrant for that business. On May 2nd, that search warrant was executed. New York State Office of Cannabis Management assisted us at that location, along with the Town of Henrietta. The search of that location resulted what's in front of you right here. And I'll go through what that exactly is. The search located 27 pounds of cannabis flower, 2 pounds of pre-rolled cannabis joints, 820 separate packages of THC edibles, and a note of that the New York State limit for THC in the edibles is 10 milligrams. These are at least 5 times that, for the most part, that we seized. So they would not even be legal to sell in our legal dispensaries. 531 cannabis concentrates, 650 vapes containing THC, and $44,000 in cash was all seized. As a result of the investigation, Ahmed Mandal, 31 of Greece, was charged with criminal possession of cannabis in the first degree. Mahand Kawa, 24 of Rochester, was also charged with criminal possession of cannabis in the first degree. Both of those are D felonies. Subsequent to that investigation, but related, and on the 6th of May, there was a warrant served on one of the employees of that shop, Mahdi Tazanet, 32 of Greece. During that search, a Glock 17 semi-automatic handgun was located with an extended magazine. Mahdi was charged with criminal possession of a weapon in the second degree and criminal possession of a weapon in the third degree. The first is a C felony, the second is a D felony. Muhammad was transported to the Monroe County Jail, arraigned in CAP court, and released on his own recognizance. Kawa was transported to the Monroe County Jail, arraigned in CAP court, and remanded to MCJ on a probation warrant. Tazanet was arraigned in CAP court and remanded to the Monroe County Jail on $2,000 cash bail and $4,000 bond. And I would like to reiterate that this was a team effort to try to close the shop down for health reasons. I'm going to leave the questions for the end of this. We have all 3 entities here. We'll be happy to take questions at the end. But until then, I'm going to turn this over to the New York State Office of Cannabis Management. And if Daniel Hackney.
Thanks, Captain. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dan Hackney. I'm the Director of Enforcement Investigations for New York State OCM. First, I just want to thank the Monroe County Sheriff's Office for the joint effort here in shutting down this illegal shop, and also the Town of Henrietta for the assistance that they gave in the effort as well. I think this case is a perfect example of the state and local efforts that are going out throughout New York State to combat the unlicensed illicit market. When you look at the products here, the amounts of THC in them are not safe for consumption, and it's not what you would see in a legal dispensary. And I think when you look at the products here, it's really a glaring example of how different it is when you go into a legal dispensary. In addition, it shows that, when we go out and we conduct our enforcement against illicit operations, we could go in doing an administrative inspection, seize the product and close the shop, or we could also go in working as a criminal case. And in this instance where the Monroe County Sheriff's led the investigation and brought us in to assist at the end, the culmination was a search warrant and arrests. So for all the illicit operators that are still out there that haven't gotten the message that we're not going to sit idly by while you operate without a license, they do so at their own peril, and now they know that there are multiple avenues that we can take to conduct our enforcement throughout the state. So, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask the town supervisor of the Town of Henrietta to come up and say a couple of words. And I'd like to note that this investigation began with citizen complaints that were heard by the town supervisor and brought to my attention. And the complaints continued to come into the Monroe County Sheriff's Office along with some leads. So I am grateful for the team effort here, and I'll turn it over to the town supervisor.
Thank you. So one of the things I do want to note is that since opting in and having our dispensaries open up in Henrietta, we have had zero issues with illegal dispensaries. They've done everything properly. If there's even ever a question, they come to us first and say, hey, this is what we're thinking, is it okay? And we let them know whether it is or isn't. And sometimes if we're not sure, we reach out to the Office of Cannabis Management. Zero problems with legal dispensaries. It's these smoke shops that have popped up that have been the problem. We have since changed our zoning so that new smoke shops coming in are required to have a special use permit, and they're also only to be located in the same areas where cannabis shops are, because again, clearly we've had a number of these that are creating issues. With that said, we've been wanting these places shut down. We've had other places where we've worked with the Monroe County Sheriffs, and they have sent in plainclothes officer. In one case, they sent in a plainclothes cadet, and we found that this shop was selling cannabis illegally to minors. Unfortunately, that one never got prosecuted. So hopefully we won't see the same here. This investigation has been great. We're hoping to forever shut this operation down, because this isn't the first time they've been found doing illegal operations. It's the first time that we've got the full warrant and search and everything. And again, our building inspectors, code enforcement, and fire marshals assisted, and we have locked the building up. One of the things that they did when the adjacent businesses, they're in a plaza, strip plaza, when they would, one of those businesses would go out, they were illegally taking over those spaces and using them for their production. And so they were kind of hiding it. And that's one of the things is we started to see there are people coming in and out of these empty locations, and that was some of the evidence that we provided that led to the sheriffs. I want to very much thank the sheriff's office, and especially the 3 investigators, for their work to put together this case, and obviously the results that came from it. Because again, in addition to the high levels of THC, you also run into issues where a lot of times where they're putting their products together, there have been instances where there have been mold spores found in the product. And obviously, if somebody is smoking that and pulling spores into their lungs, that's not a good thing for their health. So, it just further emphasizes the dangers of these illegal operations and the illegal markets, and why, to be honest, if you're going to be purchasing cannabis, you're much better off purchasing it from a legal operator. So, again, thank you very much to the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, as well as the Office of Cannabis Management, and getting this done, and hopefully we'll never see these guys reopen. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. I just want to reiterate what the supervisor just said. Why are we doing this? Why is this so important? So this shop happens to be about a half mile away from our schools. During the investigation, we had to do several undercover buys from the location where they were known not to proof anybody for age. The schools throughout Monroe County are running into a problem where the students are getting edibles that are causing medical problems while at school and obviously after school. But it's a huge issue for our children. We need to make this safe. Not only is this illegal here, but it's unregulated. So like I said earlier, the legal limit for THC in these products is 10 milligrams. The Office of Cannabis can probably speak more on this in a few minutes, but some of these products, if you look at the labels, they contain 1,000 to 3,000 milligrams of THC, which broken down would be, per serving, would be almost 5 times the legal limit. The other issue that we're running into is these shops are bringing a bad element into the towns. So we've had no problem, as the town supervisor has said, with the legal dispensaries. These illegal dispensaries, if you want to call them that, smoke shops, we've had burglaries and arsons and just a bad element coming into our town. And we can't tolerate that for the safety of the community. So I'm going to turn it back over to the New York State Office of Cannabis just to clarify a couple of comments.
Yep, thank you. And I just wanted to kind of put a footnote on the status of the shop. In addition to the criminal charges that the owners are facing, OCM did issue an order to seal, commonly referred to as a padlocking, so that location has been sealed by us. Once we issue that order to seal, we immediately begin our process to identify and notify the landlord of the location that they are now required to begin eviction proceedings of the tenant that was operating illegally. If they fail to do so, OCM will force the eviction and then hold the landlord accountable as well. So we're in that process now to make sure that, again, the landlord knows their responsibility now that this illegal shop has been shut down and sealed. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get to questions, I'd like to finish by, again, thanking everybody here, but especially thanking my investigators, my investigating sergeant and the 3 investigators on the job did a fantastic job here. They were proactive from the get-go. This has been a long-term investigation. We needed to be patient. We needed to be diligent. It's exactly what they did. They pulled in the people that we needed to pull in for assistance. It expedited the search and the categorization of the drugs, and ultimately was a plus for this town and county. So I appreciate everybody coming here. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I think that kind of the problem that we've seen across the state as the rollout of legal cannabis happen is that this is kind of a game of whack-a-mole, that you shut down one shop and another one opens up. So I want to get an idea of like long-term strategy. How do you try to prevent these kinds of places from operating?
So I think the Office of Cannabis might have more on that.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, with the regulatory authority that we had, it was more of that situation, and we realized we weren't going to be successful long term with the whack-a-mole as you describe it. I think now with the current authority that we have and the responsibility under the law that the landlords have, once we identify a shop we've sealed and notify them to be in eviction proceedings, that's swung the pendulum a little bit, and that once that happens and the landlords see that they are responsible for the eviction and they will be held accountable if they allow an illegal shop to operate within their property, that kind of gets away from the issues that you described.
Do you think there's an educational component of it too, in the sense that the average person walking into a shop like Mad Flavors, a lot of them don't know the difference between a place like this and an actual legal New York State dispensary. So how do you approach that part of it, of trying to, like, hey, make sure people know whether or not they're buying stuff that is, most of this seems shipped in from California, and probably stuff that couldn't make it to market there and then leaked over here, compared to buying from a legal dispensary that has, you know, New York product that's been tested. How do you get people to know the difference?
So there are a number of things. One, any legal dispensary will have a verification sticker on the front window that has a QR code that you can scan, and it comes right to the cannabis.ny.gov website, so you can verify it's a legal dispensary. And again, a lot of these illegal shops do target folks that haven't been into a legal location, that aren't particularly a savvy customer, as I think is the best way to describe it. When you go by a shop and you see the neon signs that are or a neon green cannabis leaf. Those types of things are not allowed in a licensed dispensary. If you look at a licensed dispensary, they're very sanitary locations. They're very clean. You have to get checked by security at the door. And when you go onto the floor, it's a completely different setup than you see in these illegal shops. The illegal shops have the products that are marketed toward kids. They have the cartoon figures on them that are marketed toward children. You won't see that in a licensed dispensary. But again, even just walking by or driving by a shop, you can typically identify if it's a legal shop or an illegal shop based on the signage, the cartoon characters that they typically will promote in the windows, and also the verification sticker that's on the front window.
Do you have an estimate of how much this stuff is worth?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but we can get that to follow up.
So can you clarify, do you know where all this stuff came from? Did it come from out of state? Was in one of these backdoor manufacturing places? Do we know where this stuff came from?
Yeah, that's something that we're not going to get into right now.
I know you can't get into it. Are you seeing a pattern versus where this stuff may be coming from in other smoke shops that you've shut down?
The only pattern I'd want to get into is that we do see that there are distribution networks that are set up between the illicit shops. And that's something that we dive into with our investigations at OCM, and I'm sure the sheriffs as well. But as far as the origination of the location, I can't get into that side of it.
What happens to all this product next? Where does it go?
Ultimately, it will likely come to us to be destroyed.
And how long was Mad Flavors operating? I know there were citizen complaints that came in that led you guys to this, but how long were they in business?
I'm not 100% positive, but certainly a couple years. You know, it was sometime, obviously, after the legalization of cannabis that you started to see the smoke shops appearing. And once that happened, as I mentioned, so it was about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, we changed the regulation to limit where they could go, because they were absolutely opening up especially near the high schools. They were trying to get as close to the high school as possible. So, so like I said, if I had to guess, 2 to 3 years.
You mentioned one of the people had a probation violation, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know what their previous charge was?
I do not know.
Are you actively investigating other smoke shops in the area currently?
Yes. So that's a good point. Right now, with the game of whack-a-mole kind of afoot, we have a formula for combating this. All right. So the message out there is, if you can't exist as a smoke shop, a legal smoke shop, and you need to sell illegal cannabis, it's not going to happen here.
What were the citizen complaints? What were people telling you?
There were many citizens. I can talk with the supervisor on this because we both received them. The complaints came in from everywhere, from the schools with medical issues the kids are experiencing in schools from eating gummies, to just parents seeing the traffic going in and out of there, realizing that there's minors involved, and realizing it's a health risk. Many calls and many people discussing it. Anything to add to that?
Yeah. So certainly with some of the places, there'll be another business nearby, and especially if it's a business that has outdoor place, we'll have parents or just residents notifying us that, you know, there's a constant cannabis smell coming from the location. We'll get reports of people will, you know, tell someone who will tell someone else, who then usually gets back to one of us on the town board, that this place is illegally selling. And so, again, anytime we get those, we share them with the sheriff's office. Captain Fay and I meet pretty regularly to go over not just this, but a lot of the stuff in the town. We also added and actually we did it with the revenues from the cannabis tax. We added what's called special attention detail, which is that the town of Henrietta does not have a police department. And we had looked at doing a constable under New York state law, realized that we had no way to train this person. If they were going to be doing traffic stops, we wanted them to be armed, and we don't have any way to deal with the training involved with that. So we reached out to the sheriff's office to enter into a partnership where we pay for them to add an additional deputy. The deputy works for Monroe County Sheriff's and is in their chain of command, but we provide a list of saying, these are the things we want you to pay special attention to. And so some of that has been some of these shops, some of that has been traffic in residential neighborhoods, some of that has been problems around schools and or parks, things like that. So, you know, so like I said, we have a lot of coordination with the sheriff's office. So whenever we get these complaints, we share them. You know, sometimes they could just be complaints, but they're usually, by the time they get to someone on the town board, there's usually some basis behind it, especially if we get them from multiple sources.
The town of Henrietta is coming off, like you said, of a really successful year with legal sales and generating over $750,000 worth of tax revenues from legal sales. Can you speak to what the effect might be of illegal sales on that tax revenue stream?
Yeah, so to be honest, that's not in any way plays into this arrest, for lack of a better way to put it. This is really about safety. As the captain noted, it's in addition to selling to minors, in addition to the health issues that we've talked about previously, it is a bad element that we really don't want around. We have a video of someone throwing a Molotov. You know, so it's an issue, but to those legal providers, it's also incredibly unfair to them, right? They're following all the rules, they're paying the taxes, they're doing the stuff, these guys aren't. So I see it more of an issue that it's unfair to the legal providers. Then I'm not as concerned about the lost tax revenue. I'm more concerned about the health and welfare of our residents. You know, with that said, there's, you know, in addition to the stuff we've already talked about, we're about to make a purchase for a piece of equipment that will allow us to repair potholes on state roads, assuming the New York State DOT gives us authorization to do so. As anyone knows, the state roads have been horrible, right? So that's a great benefit that we're getting from the legal sale of cannabis that otherwise would have to be borne by our taxpayers, our residents. So there are a lot of benefits to the cannabis tax revenue. But like I said, this really is more about the health and safety of our residents.
By taking off another illegal seller from the market, does that alter your ability to pass another permit from someone who does want to legally open another store?
Not really, because this location is not a legal location where cannabis, you know, one of the things we did that's a little unique from a lot of other towns that a lot of people put them in there's zoning districts that are for adult use. So believe it or not, there are still adult use bookstores and video stores. And they're typically, I'll call it hidden away in a part of town that, usually an industrial portion of town that not always the best place to go to make a purchase. We made a conscious decision to allow them to be on our residential, or excuse me, not residential, and our commercial stretch, specifically portions of Jefferson Road and West Henrietta Road, choosing areas that are far from schools, churches, parks, you know, and places like that. So this is not one of those locations. It's too close to the schools. It's too close to houses. We would never allow a cannabis shop there. So it really doesn't affect that. I do think we're starting, this question came up at a recent, it was actually on Evan Dawson. Question came up, you know, do we feel we're at the limit? I actually honestly think we do. There isn't, I don't know that there's a hard limit. But, you know, you start to get to saturation. We have, I think, 4 currently operating, 6 totally authorized to operate. I don't know that we need a 7th. So I really don't think this affects that. You know, if the question is, if they're not buying here, would they buy from the legal? Again, I can't answer that question. But as I've mentioned, that's not my concern as much. Now, that might be the concern of the legal shop owners because, again, that's draining from their legal business. So.
The guy throwing the Molotov, was he throwing it at the shop? What was the deal there?
Sure. Yeah, that was somebody late night, taking his time, lighting several Molotov cocktails outside that business, attempting to throw them into the business with negative results until he had to smash the window and throw it into the business. And then he was successful at that. And that was going back probably about a year ago. Anybody else?
Just one more. If it is legal to sell cannabis now, can you speak to maybe the motivation for why you're seeing these shops crop up to sell illegally?
Yeah, the motivation, is as old as time. It's money, right? Money and greed. Now, I can't get much more in depth than that, but it's fairly simple. Okay, well, I thank you all for coming. Again, I appreciate the team effort and everybody being here. Thank you all.